A young child vanished from her front yard without a single clue. Then, 8 years later, a neighbor stumbles upon a hidden cave that unravels a dark secret no one saw coming. The afternoon sun was warm and inviting as 6-year-old Lily played happily in her front yard, a small patch of green grass bordered by the neat white picket fence that her parents had lovingly built just months before. The quiet suburban street was calm, with the familiar hum of distant lawnmowers and the occasional chirping of birds in the trees. Lily's laughter echoed softly as she chased after a bright yellow butterfly, her little hands reaching out, eyes wide with wonder. Her mother, Sarah, was just inside the house, keeping an eye on her through the large window, folding laundry but stealing glances at her daughter every few seconds. Everything seemed perfect in that peaceful moment. But as the minutes passed, the tranquility shattered in an instant. When Sarah finally stepped outside to call Lily inside for a snack, the yard was empty. Lily was nowhere to be seen. Panic flooded her veins as she called out, her voice trembling. "Lily? Lily, where are you?" The butterfly had disappeared, and so had her little girl. Sarah's heart pounded wildly, and she rushed to the neighboring yards, asking anyone she could find if they had seen her daughter. Neighbors emerged from their homes, drawn by the urgency in Sarah's voice. Soon, a small crowd gathered, eyes scanning the street, bushes, and nearby park, searching desperately for any sign of Lily. The police arrived within the hour, their presence adding a stark sense of seriousness to the neighborhood that just moments ago had felt so safe. Officers combed through every corner of the street, interviewed neighbors, and set up a command post near the yard where Lily had been playing. The community banded together in a way that only tragedy could forge. Neighbors who barely knew each other, suddenly united by fear and concern. Flyers with Lily's photo and information appeared on every telephone pole, and volunteers took shifts walking the area and calling out her name. The news station arrived that evening, broadcasting the story to the whole city in hopes that someone, somewhere, might have seen something. Yet as the hours turned into days, and the days into weeks, no clear lead emerged. There were no footprints leading away, no suspicious vehicles reported, no stranger seen nearby. It was as if Lily had vanished into thin air. The police speculated on possible scenarios: a stranger's abduction, an accident, even the unlikely possibility that she had wandered into the dense woods bordering the neighborhood and gotten lost. But the woods were thick and familiar to many, and thorough searches yielded nothing. Sarah and her husband, Mark, were shattered beyond words. Their world had fractured, replaced by an unbearable void that grew wider with each passing day. Friends and family tried to offer comfort, but nothing could fill the emptiness or ease the overwhelming fear that their little girl was somewhere out there, scared and alone. Nights were the hardest. Sarah would sit by the window, clutching Lily's favorite stuffed rabbit, waiting for a miracle, willing her daughter to return. Mark, a man of few words, spent hours searching online forums and cold case files, desperate to find any similar cases that might offer a clue. The neighborhood itself transformed overnight. The joyous chatter of children playing outside diminished, replaced by whispered conversations behind closed doors and wary glances at strangers. Parents grew overprotective, locking doors and windows tight and keeping their kids close. The once lively block seemed to hold its breath, haunted by the mystery of the missing child. As the investigation stalled and months slipped away, hope began to wane for many. Yet Sarah refused to surrender to despair. She clung to the belief that Lily was still alive, that someday, somehow, her daughter would be found. She became a tireless advocate, speaking at community meetings, appealing on television, and organizing search parties that scoured every inch of the surrounding forests and abandoned buildings. But even with such determination, the truth remained elusive. 8 years had passed since that tragic day when Lily vanished from her front yard. 8 long years of silence, unanswered questions, and hearts weighed down by loss. The neighborhood moved on. People changed addresses, children grew older, and the world kept turning, but for the family and those who cared, the pain never truly faded. And deep in the shadows of the woods nearby, Something long hidden was waiting to be discovered, something that would bring the past crashing back and finally shed light on the mystery that had haunted them all. The days following Lily's disappearance stretched into a bleak, endless haze for the neighborhood, as if the sunlight itself had dimmed. Every corner, every window seemed to hold the echo of her laughter, now hauntingly absent. The community, once full of friendly waves and casual greetings, now wore a veil of sorrow and fear. Neighbors gathered in living rooms and front porches, exchanging whispered prayers and fragmented hopes. Vigils were organized, candles flickering against the dusk as people stood hand in hand, clinging to the fragile hope that Lily might somehow return. Posters plastered telephone poles and storefront windows, Lily's smiling face frozen in time, her eyes wide and innocent, promising nothing but a lifetime of questions. The media descended, their cameras flashing and microphones thrust forward, each report replaying the same tragic tale, spreading her name far beyond the small suburban street. But every news segment ended with the same grim reality. No new leads, no signs, no clues. The silence in response was deafening. The police maintained a steady presence. But as days became weeks and weeks became months, frustration grew. Search parties combed through the woods repeatedly, sometimes discovering only broken branches or stray animal tracks. The theories multiplied. Was she abducted by a stranger? Could she have wandered off and gotten lost? Was there someone closer to home who had taken her? But the answers eluded everyone. The officers' kind eyes and solemn reassurances provided little comfort to a family whose pain was raw and unyielding. Lily's parents were consumed by grief that seeped into every waking moment. Sarah's nights were spent awake, clutching to the faint memories of her daughter's small hands and infectious giggle. Mark threw himself into the investigation with a desperate intensity, but even he was not immune to the crushing weight of uncertainty. Their home, once a sanctuary filled with laughter and light, had become a mausoleum of memories and unanswered questions. The community watched, helpless and heartbroken, as the family slowly faded into themselves, their smiles replaced by hollow stares and quiet tears. Meanwhile, the neighborhood's atmosphere shifted profoundly. The bright summer days that once saw children running barefoot down sidewalks and playing tag now felt tense and uncertain. Parents, once relaxed and trusting, grew watchful, warning their children to stay close and never speak to strangers. Streets that had felt safe and welcoming became shadowed by suspicion and unease. Children's laughter was replaced by silence or hushed whispers indoors, the very spirit of the neighborhood dampened by grief and fear. The police worked tirelessly, following every tip and investigating every rumor, but frustration mounted. As months slipped by, some residents grew weary and discouraged, fearing the worst. The community tried to hold on to hope, but even the strongest hearts began to fray. Lily's name became both a beacon of hope and a painful reminder of loss, woven into the fabric of the neighborhood's identity. Sarah became the driving force behind efforts to keep Lily's story alive. She spoke at town meetings, pleaded on television, and organized countless search parties that scoured the surrounding forests and abandoned buildings, never allowing the community to forget the missing child. Volunteers came from neighboring towns, bringing food, water, and comfort, each person silently promising to help find Lily. Yet, despite their collective efforts, the mystery only deepened. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years. The investigation eventually slowed, and the media's attention shifted to newer stories. The search parties thinned, and the vigils grew smaller. But the pain in the hearts of those who loved Lily never faded. The neighborhood tried to reclaim its normalcy, but the absence of the little girl left a permanent scar. Even as time passed, the mystery haunted the community. Parents warned their children of dangers unseen, and neighbors exchanged wary glances when a stranger appeared. Every rustle in the woods, every distant noise, stirred old fears and painful memories. The silence that had engulfed Lily's disappearance was a constant reminder of what was lost and what might still be found. And though 8 years had now passed, the neighborhood remained haunted by the unanswered questions, by the memory of a little girl who vanished without a trace on a sunny afternoon. Beneath the surface, hidden in the shadows of the woods nearby, a secret waited patiently. A secret that only the most curious and brave would one day uncover. Something that would finally bring hope back to a broken community and answer the haunting question that had lingered far too long. 8 years had passed since Lily vanished from the front yard on that bright summer afternoon, and the quiet neighborhood that had once brimmed with hope and fear had transformed in many ways. New families moved in, unfamiliar faces replaced old ones, and the seasons changed with an unrelenting rhythm. The streets still held the echoes of the past, faint whispers of a tragedy that never truly left, but life had pushed forward, as it always does. Children who were toddlers when Lily disappeared had grown into teenagers, and the yard where she once played had been planted with fresh flowers and trimmed bushes, masking the memories beneath. Lily's family, overwhelmed by grief and the weight of unanswered questions, had left the neighborhood shortly after the 5th anniversary of her disappearance. The empty house remained for a time, its windows boarded up, a silent monument to a family's heartbreak. Slowly, the property was sold, and a new family settled into the home, unaware of the deep sorrow it held. The neighborhood tried to heal, but the absence of one small girl continued to cast a shadow. For many residents, the past was a memory they tried to tuck away, a wound too painful to reopen. The children who had once played near Lily's house now walked cautiously to school, wary of the woods that bordered the street. Their parents urged vigilance, never allowing complacency to return. The once tight-knit block became quieter, more cautious, as if the fear of losing another child kept everyone on edge. Yet beneath the surface, the mystery still simmered. Old conversations would surface unexpectedly, neighbors exchanging hesitant glances and cautious words when a stranger came to town or when a new family moved in. The community's collective heart still beat with a longing for answers. But over time, hope became a fragile thread, easily snapped by the realities of life. It was during this time of quiet uncertainty that the new neighbors moved in. The Henderson family, Michael, a software engineer, his wife Anna, a schoolteacher, and their teenage son Jake, had no idea of the neighborhood's dark past when they first arrived. They were drawn by the charming houses and peaceful streets, eager to start fresh in a place that seemed welcoming and safe. Jake, curious and adventurous, immediately began exploring the area, fascinated by the woods that fringed the backyards like a mysterious frontier. Jake had always been different from other teens. He wasn't satisfied with simple answers or shallow friendships. He loved puzzles, mysteries, and stories with hidden secrets. When he heard whispers of a girl who had disappeared years ago, his interest piqued. His parents were cautious, but encouraged his curiosity in moderation. They knew the story was painful, but they hoped Jake's inquisitiveness might bring a sense of closure or healing to the neighborhood. As Jake wandered the streets and edges of the woods, he noticed things others had overlooked. Broken branches, faint paths overgrown with weeds, and small clearings that seemed out of place. His imagination ran wild with the possibilities. He wondered if the woods held secrets no one had yet uncovered, if the mystery of Lily's disappearance was somehow tied to this very place. Meanwhile, the Henderson family settled in, becoming part of the quiet rhythm of the neighborhood. Anna volunteered at the local school, sharing stories with her students about resilience and hope, while Michael worked late into the nights on his projects. Life seemed normal, but Jake felt a restless energy, an unspoken pull toward the woods and the secrets they might hide. The community, though scarred by the past, continued to live day by day. Parents still watched their children closely, but the grip of fear loosened slightly with time. Neighborhood gatherings were smaller, laughter quieter, but the bond of shared history remained strong beneath the surface. Many hoped that someday the mystery would be solved, that Lily's story would end not in tragedy, but in reunion and peace. In the meantime, Jake's fascination grew into determination. He began researching the case, reading old newspaper clippings, interviewing longtime residents, and mapping out the woods in his notebook. Something deep inside told him that the answer was there, hidden among the trees and shadows, waiting for someone brave enough to find it. And so, as the neighborhood moved on with the passage of time, unaware of what was about to unfold, Jake's quiet quest began. It was the beginning of a journey that would not only challenge everything the community believed, but also change the lives of everyone involved forever. The past was not done with them yet, and the secrets of the woods were ready to reveal themselves in ways no one could have imagined. Jake Henderson's curiosity was unlike that of any other teenager in the neighborhood. From the moment his family moved into the old house on Maple Street, he sensed there was more to this quiet suburban block than met the eye. His keen eyes absorbed every detail: the cracked sidewalks, the aging fences, and most intriguingly, the dense woods that skirted the backyards. While other kids saw nothing but tangled branches and shadows, Jake saw a puzzle waiting to be solved, a mystery begging to be unraveled. He had overheard the older residents speaking in hushed tones about the disappearance of a little girl named Lily. It was a story shrouded in sorrow and unanswered questions, the kind of story that piqued Jake's interest instantly. He spent evenings digging through old newspapers and online archives, piecing together fragments of what had happened 8 years ago. Flyers, police reports, community meeting notes. Each offered a glimpse into the past, but none provided the breakthrough he hoped for. Jake was the type who couldn't leave a question unanswered. At school, his teachers admired his relentless pursuit of knowledge, though some warned him to be careful with the darker mysteries he chased. His mother, Anna, encouraged his passion for learning, but urged caution when it came to dwelling on painful histories. His father, Michael, offered practical advice, reminding Jake that sometimes the past was better left alone. But Jake's mind was made up. He needed to understand what really happened to Lily. Late afternoons found Jake wandering the neighborhood, walking the perimeter where the trees began to crowd close to the houses. His footsteps were soft on the fallen leaves, and his eyes scanned the forest floor for anything unusual: a discarded toy, a piece of fabric, a footprint. He noted how the woods seemed to swallow light, shadows pooling beneath twisted branches, creating secret spaces where something hidden might lurk. One afternoon, while exploring a particularly dense thicket near the edge of the Henderson property, Jake stumbled upon something curious: a faint trail, barely visible beneath years of leaf litter and overgrowth. His heart raced. The path was narrow, as if rarely traveled, winding deeper into the forest. Something about it felt different, as if it had been deliberately concealed. He followed it cautiously, pushing past low-hanging branches and stepping over gnarled roots. The trail led him to a small clearing where the sun broke through the canopy, illuminating an odd formation of rocks stacked against a moss-covered hill. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary pile, but as Jake examined it more closely, he noticed what appeared to be the edge of a stone entrance, partially hidden by vines and earth. His pulse quickened. Could this be a forgotten cave? A secret hideout? Or perhaps something far more significant connected to the neighborhood's darkest mystery? Jake's mind raced with questions. Why would anyone hide a cave entrance here? Could it be linked to Lily's disappearance? He took out his phone and snapped pictures, carefully marking the spot on his GPS. The discovery filled him with both excitement and a hint of fear. He knew he needed to tell someone, but he wasn't ready to share this secret just yet. This was his mystery to solve, and he wanted to be sure before involving others. That evening, he sat at the kitchen table with his notebook open, filling page after page with observations, sketches, and theories. He cross-referenced old maps and aerial photos of the neighborhood, trying to find any mention of the woods or caves. Nothing showed up. It was as if this place was deliberately erased from public knowledge. At school the next day, Jake's thoughts were elsewhere. Teachers noticed his distracted gaze and the way he doodled strange symbols in his notebooks. His friends tried to engage him in casual conversation, but Jake's mind was preoccupied. He was on the edge of something big, and he felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Despite the excitement, Jake also felt a growing unease. The woods held secrets, yes, but they also whispered warnings. The neighborhood had tried to forget, to move on, but nature rarely lets things stay buried forever. And some secrets, once uncovered, have a way of changing everything. Back at home, Anna noticed Jake's restlessness and sat down beside him one evening. "You seem so caught up in that old story," she said gently. "It's okay to want answers, but don't lose yourself in it. Sometimes the past is painful for a reason." Jake nodded, but couldn't shake the feeling that this was a chance to bring light to a shadow that had darkened so many lives. The discovery of the cave entrance was the key, he was sure. The puzzle pieces were finally starting to fit together. As the days passed, Jake's determination only grew. He knew the path ahead would be difficult and possibly dangerous, but he was ready. What he didn't yet realize was that his discovery would not only reopen wounds for the community, but would also bring him face to face with secrets that some wanted to keep buried forever. The days following Jake's discovery of the faint cave entrance were a whirlwind of anticipation and unease. The secret spot nestled deep within the woods beckoned to him like a silent siren, promising answers, yet warning of dangers unknown. Each afternoon after school, Jake found himself drawn back to the moss-covered stone structure, his mind racing with possibilities. What if this cave was the key to unlocking Lily's disappearance? What if inside he would find clues no one had dared to imagine? Careful to avoid arousing suspicion, Jake began preparing for a proper exploration. He gathered a flashlight, a sturdy rope, gloves, and a small backpack filled with essentials. His father's words echoed in his mind. "Be safe. Always tell someone where you're going." But Jake knew this discovery was fragile. If word got out too soon, someone might try to stop him, or worse, destroy evidence. He chose to keep his plans secret, confiding only in his closest friend, Emma, who shared his love of mysteries and adventure. One chilly Saturday morning, Jake and Emma set out early, backpacks slung over their shoulders, their breath visible in the crisp air. They moved silently through the woods, following the hidden trail Jake had mapped out. The forest was alive with the sounds of rustling leaves, bird song, and distant wildlife, but there was an eerie stillness that made their footsteps feel louder than usual. Every snap of a twig, every creak of a branch made their hearts pound with nervous excitement. As they approached the clearing, Jake's eyes scanned the rock formation with renewed focus. The stone entrance was partially obscured by thick vines and earth, but the outline was unmistakable, a narrow opening, dark and mysterious, leading into the depths of the hillside. They worked together, gently pulling away the foliage and brushing dirt from the rocks. The opening was just wide enough for a person to crawl through, and a cool draft whispered out from the darkness within. Emma shivered but smiled. "This is straight out of an adventure novel," she whispered. "Are you ready?" Jake nodded, shining his flashlight into the entrance. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a tunnel that sloped downward, carved out of rough stone. The air smelled damp and earthy, with a faint metallic tang that made Jake's nose wrinkle. They took turns crawling inside, steadying themselves against the rough walls as they descended deeper into the cave. The passage twisted and turned, narrow in places, forcing them to crouch low. Their flashlight beams danced across ancient markings etched into the stone, symbols and shapes that neither of them recognized. Jake snapped pictures with his phone, hoping to research them later. The silence was thick except for the sound of their breathing and the soft scrape of their movements. After several minutes, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber, dimly illuminated by stray sunlight filtering through cracks above. The space was small but unmistakably human-made, with evidence of tools and rudimentary construction. Scattered remnants of wood, broken glass, and a rusted metal box lay half-buried in dust. Jake's heart hammered as he approached the box, carefully brushing off the grime and lifting the lid. Inside, they found a collection of items, A faded photograph of a little girl with bright eyes. Could it be Lily? A small notebook with yellowed pages, and a handful of objects that looked like toys, now brittle with age. The discovery sent a shock through Jake's system. This wasn't just an abandoned cave. It was a hidden refuge, a secret place where someone had spent time, maybe even kept someone else safe or captive. Emma looked at Jake, her eyes wide. Do you think this is where Lily was? Jake swallowed hard. I don't know yet, but it's definitely connected. Someone went to great lengths to hide this place. They carefully documented everything, taking photos and notes, then retraced their steps back through the tunnel. Emerging into the daylight, the forest seemed different somehow, as if the cave had shifted the entire atmosphere of the woods. Their discovery was heavy with significance, but also danger. Someone might have hidden this place for a reason, and if they found out it was uncovered, what would they do? Back home, Jake and Emma pored over the notebook's pages, deciphering the faded handwriting and cryptic sketches. The entries hinted at fear, secrecy, and a desperate hope for rescue. The more they read, the clearer it became that Lily's disappearance was not an accident, but part of a sinister story woven through the neighborhood's past. As the sun set, Jake felt a mixture of fear and determination. The hidden entrance had been found, and with it, a pathway into a mystery that could finally be solved, or could tear apart the fragile peace the community had struggled to maintain. The question now was how far he was willing to go to uncover the truth, and what dangers lay waiting in the shadows. The next few days after the cave discovery were filled with restless nights and relentless curiosity. Jake and Emma had become engrossed in the faded notebook they had found inside the hidden chamber. The fragile pages, yellowed and brittle, held a series of cryptic entries that hinted at a story no one in their quiet neighborhood had dared to imagine. As Jake carefully turned each page, the weight of the mystery pressed on him more heavily than ever before. The notebook's handwriting was hurried and uneven, as if the author had been writing in moments of panic and fear. Among the entries, there were references to strange visitors to the woods, whispered threats, and secret meetings held in the dead of night. A recurring name appeared repeatedly, Mr. Carver, someone who seemed to wield power over the area, though his exact identity remained elusive. There were also mentions of a safe place, a refuge for someone who needed to be hidden, and frequent pleas for protection and silence. Jake's mind raced. Could Mr. Carver be connected to the disappearance of Lily? Was the cave a secret refuge or a prison? The notebook didn't provide clear answers, only fragments that suggested something dark and dangerous had unfolded behind the community's closed doors. He and Emma began piecing together the timeline, aligning the notebook entries with news reports and police investigations from the time Lily vanished. Determined to find more clues, Jake contacted the local library and requested access to archived newspapers and public records from 8 years ago. The librarian, a kind woman named Mrs. Jennings, noticed Jake's earnestness and discreetly offered him some unpublished clippings and documents she had found in the archives. Among them were articles that mentioned a few suspicious incidents near the woods, disappearances of animals, strange noises heard at night, and unexplained lights flickering between the trees. These reports had been largely ignored or dismissed as local folklore at the time. As Jake and Emma delved deeper, they uncovered old interviews with neighbors who had witnessed unusual activity. One elderly man recalled seeing a black van parked near the woods on several occasions and hearing low voices. Another neighbor mentioned a heated argument between Lily's parents and an unknown man months before the disappearance. These testimonies painted a picture of a community hiding secrets beneath its peaceful exterior. Late one evening, Jake decided to revisit the cave, hoping to find something they might have missed. Armed with gloves and a flashlight, he crawled back into the hidden chamber, his breath catching as he noticed faint markings on the cave walls. They were different from the symbols he had photographed before. These looked like scratches, almost like a desperate attempt to communicate. He carefully traced the lines, realizing they formed a pattern that resembled a map. Back home, Jake and Emma studied the map, comparing it to the neighborhood's layout. It appeared to indicate several points of interest: places in the woods, nearby houses, and a spot marked with an X near the old mill on the outskirts of town. The old mill had been abandoned for years, a place whispered about in ghost stories, but never investigated. The discovery of the map gave Jake renewed hope that the mystery was solvable, that they could find the truth hidden beneath layers of silence. Despite their excitement, the danger of their pursuit became clearer with every new clue. Jake noticed a black car parked suspiciously near his house one afternoon, and strangers seemed to be watching the neighborhood more closely. The feeling of being watched gnawed at him, a reminder that some forces wanted the past to remain buried. Emma urged caution, but Jake's determination only hardened. He reached out to Detective Roberts, the retired officer who had originally investigated Lily's case. The detective, now living quietly in town, was reluctant to revisit the painful memories but agreed to meet after Jake presented the evidence. When Jake showed him the notebook pages and photos, Roberts' eyes darkened with recognition. He confessed that the case had been closed prematurely, pressured by powerful local interests who wanted to avoid scandal. With the detective's help, Jake and Emma planned their next steps carefully. The cave had given them a foothold into a hidden world, but the road ahead was fraught with risks. Every clue uncovered seemed to pull them deeper into a web of secrets, lies, and long-buried truths. Yet, the hope that Lily might still be found, and justice served, fueled their resolve. As night fell over the quiet neighborhood, Jake sat by his window, notebook open on his lap. The flickering streetlights cast shadows across the room, mirroring the shadows in his mind. The clues they had uncovered were only the beginning, and he knew the journey would test everything he believed in. But Jake was ready. The truth was within reach, and he was determined to bring it to light, no matter the cost. The days following their meeting with Detective Roberts were charged with a new sense of purpose and urgency. Jake and Emma felt like they had stepped into a world where every shadow might conceal a secret and every whisper could hold a clue. Armed with the retired detective's insights and the cryptic notebook, they set out to follow the trail toward the old mill, the mysterious location marked on the map they had uncovered in the cave. The old mill stood on the edge of town, a hulking relic of a bygone era. Its crumbling stone walls were tangled in ivy, windows long shattered, and its rusty machinery lay silent under layers of dust and decay. Locals rarely ventured near it, whispering tales of strange happenings and eerie noises after dark. For Jake and Emma, the mill was a symbol of everything hidden in plain sight, a place forgotten by time, but perhaps holding the answers they desperately sought. One cool afternoon, they approached the mill cautiously, their footsteps muffled by fallen leaves and overgrown brush. The air smelled faintly of damp wood and rust, and the sun cast long shadows through the skeletal remains of the building. Jake's flashlight beam cut through the gloom, revealing graffiti on the walls, some recent, some faded by years. Symbols similar to those they had seen in the cave appeared repeatedly, as if marking a trail. As they explored deeper, Emma's eyes caught sight of something half-buried beneath a collapsed wooden beam, a weathered leather-bound journal. Carefully, they pulled it free, brushing off dirt and cobwebs. The cover was cracked and brittle, but the pages inside were surprisingly well preserved. This second journal appeared to be a continuation of the story begun in the cave's notebook. Flipping through the pages, Jake's heart pounded. The entries were written in a different hand, but the tone was desperate and urgent, filled with references to someone called the girl, always guarded and hidden, and to a man named Carver whose reach was feared by all. There were detailed accounts of secret meetings, plans to escape, and warnings about those who would stop at nothing to keep the girl's secret safe. One entry caught Jake's eye, a mention of a hidden chamber beneath the mill, accessible only through a trapdoor concealed beneath the floorboards in the main room. The writer described it as a safe place, a sanctuary from danger, where the girl could remain hidden from those hunting her. The journal also included a crude sketch of the mill's floor plan, with a marked spot that matched the area where they now stood. Excitement surged through Jake and Emma, tempered by a growing sense of caution. If what the journal suggested was true, Then the mill was not just a decaying ruin, but a vital piece of the puzzle in Lily's disappearance. But they also knew that probing too deeply could provoke dangerous consequences. Whoever had hidden the girl, and whoever was protecting Carver's secrets, might still be watching. Their exploration was interrupted suddenly by the distant sound of footsteps crunching over gravel. Instinctively, Jake and Emma ducked behind a stack of broken beams, holding their breath. Shadows moved near the entrance, a group of men speaking in low tones. They couldn't make out the words, but the threat was unmistakable. "Heart-pounding," Jake whispered. "We have to get out of here. They're onto us." Emma nodded, equally shaken. They slipped quietly through a side exit, the journals safely tucked in Jake's backpack, their minds racing with questions and fears. Back in the safety of Jake's room, they spread out the journals and notes, piecing together what they had learned so far. It became clear that Lily's disappearance was tied to a web of secrets involving powerful people in the town, desperate to hide the truth. The girl mentioned in the journals was almost certainly Lily, and the secret chambers, both the cave and the hidden space beneath the mill, were places meant to protect her from harm or perhaps to imprison her. The danger now was real and close. The men at the mill were a stark reminder that their investigation had stirred old ghosts, and not everyone wanted the past to be unearthed. But Jake's resolve only hardened. Every unexpected discovery brought them closer to the truth and to the hope that after 8 long years, Lily might finally be found. That night, as Jake lay awake staring at the ceiling, he realized the stakes were higher than ever. The missing child, the secret caves, the powerful enemies lurking in the shadows. It was all part of a story far bigger and darker than he had imagined. But he was determined to see it through, no matter where it led. In the days that followed their tense encounter at the old mill, Jake and Emma found themselves consumed by the contents of the second journal. The entries, while fragmented and often cryptic, hinted at a desperate attempt to communicate without alerting those who might intercept the message. It was clear the writer had taken great pains to encode information, embedding clues in the text that were easy to miss if read too casually. Determined to uncover every hidden detail, Jake spread both journals across the kitchen table, searching for patterns and subtle hints. As Jake examined a particularly worn page, he noticed faint markings in the margins, small dots and dashes that didn't seem random. A spark of realization hit him. These were Morse code symbols. Excited but cautious, he fetched his phone to decode the dots and dashes. The message, once translated, read, "Seek beneath the willow." Jake's mind raced. The old willow tree at the edge of the park, the very spot where Lily had been last seen playing years ago, now took on new significance. The journal suggested that beneath its gnarled roots might lie the key to unraveling the mystery that had gripped the neighborhood for so long. That afternoon, despite the creeping dusk and a chill in the air, Jake and Emma made their way to the willow. Its long, sweeping branches swayed gently, casting ghostly shadows across the soft earth. With gloves on, they began to dig carefully around the base, wary of disturbing anything that might be hidden there. After what felt like hours, Emma's fingers brushed against something hard buried beneath the roots. They unearthed a small, rusted metal box, locked but surprisingly intact. Heart pounding with anticipation, Jake pulled out a small toolkit from his backpack and began to work on the lock. Minutes later, the box creaked open, revealing a bundle of papers, a faded photograph, and a small, worn pendant. Jake unfolded the papers with trembling hands. They were letters, handwritten notes filled with pleas, warnings, and confessions. The handwriting was the same frantic scrawl from the journals, and the content was chilling. The letters spoke of fear, betrayal, and a growing desperation to protect a child from those who sought to do her harm. The author begged anyone who found the letters to understand the truth and to help the girl before it was too late. The photograph was equally haunting. It showed a young girl with familiar features, bright eyes, a soft smile, but her face was partially obscured by shadows. Jake and Emma recognized her instantly. It was Lily. The pendant, a delicate silver locket engraved with a small flower, seemed to be hers. Emma's fingers closed around it tightly, as if holding onto a fragile piece of hope. The discovery beneath the willow was a turning point. The secret message, the hidden box, and the letters revealed that Lily's disappearance was no accident. Someone had been trying to protect her, to keep her safe in a world that had turned hostile and dangerous. But who was behind it? And where was Lily now? The questions swirled in Jake's mind, but amidst the uncertainty, one thing was clear. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together. The cave, the mill, the journals, and now the secret message under the willow were all threads woven into a larger tapestry of secrets that had kept the truth buried for 8 long years. Yet as hope blossomed, so did the danger. That very night, Jake noticed unfamiliar figures lurking near his home again, their presence more brazen and threatening than before. It was a stark reminder that time was running out and that those guarding the secret were watching closely, willing to do anything to keep it hidden. Determined not to let fear stop them, Jake and Emma resolved to keep pushing forward. They knew that the answers were within reach, hidden in the shadows but ready to be uncovered. The secret message beneath the willow was a beacon, guiding them closer to the truth and to the hope that after all these years, Lily might finally be found. The discovery beneath the willow had stirred something deep within Jake and Emma, a mixture of hope, fear, and relentless curiosity. Now more than ever, they felt they were standing on the edge of a revelation that could finally illuminate the dark shadows surrounding Lily's disappearance. But to understand the present, they knew they had to unravel the tangled threads of the past. That evening, Jake returned to his home, clutching the faded photograph and the silver locket tightly. He spread the journals and letters out on his desk, poring over each word as if they were a map leading to the truth. Emma joined him, her eyes tired but determined. Together, they began piecing together the story concealed in the layers of handwriting and hidden notes. As they read, a picture emerged, a story of a secret pact between a few trusted individuals desperate to protect Lily from a man named Carver, a powerful figure whose influence stretched deep into the town's underbelly. The journals revealed that Carver had a dark reputation, rumored to be involved in illicit dealings and willing to do anything to silence those who opposed him. The writer of the journals was one of Lily's protectors, someone who had worked tirelessly to keep her hidden, moving her between safe places when danger loomed too close. One letter, dated just weeks before Lily vanished, was particularly haunting. It spoke of a plan to hide Lily in a place no one would think to look, a sanctuary carved deep underground, an underground labyrinth beneath the town, accessible only through a concealed entrance. The writer's tone was both hopeful and desperate, fearing they were running out of time. Jake and Emma exchanged glances, their minds racing. The secret cave they had discovered 8 years ago was almost certainly that sanctuary. But if Lily had been hidden there all this time, why had no one found her? And more importantly, why had the entrance remained a secret for so long? The answer came from a faded photograph tucked among the letters. It showed the inside of a dimly lit cavern, with markings on the walls identical to those Jake and Emma had seen in the cave and the mill. The photo also captured a figure, small and indistinct, standing near a narrow passage. The handwriting on the back simply read, "She waits." The words sent a chill down Jake's spine. Lily was alive, somewhere beneath the town, hidden away for 8 long years, waiting to be found. But who had left this message? And who had been watching over her all this time? Determined to learn more, Jake and Emma contacted the retired detective, Roberts, sharing the new discoveries. Roberts's face grew grim as he listened, confirming what they suspected. The past held secrets that some were willing to kill to protect. He warned them to be careful, reminding them that Carver's reach was long and the people guarding his secrets were ruthless. That night, as Jake lay awake, the memories of Lily's disappearance played in his mind like a haunting melody. The joyful laughter of a child in the front yard, the frantic search parties, the unanswered questions, all now took on a new, urgent meaning. The past was no longer just a memory. It was a living, breathing mystery demanding to be solved. Jake's resolve deepened. He knew that to find Lily, they would have to confront the shadows of the past head-on. The hidden cave, the secret notes, the warnings, they were pieces of a puzzle waiting to be completed. And only by understanding the past could they hope to bring Lily back into the light. With a renewed sense of purpose, Jake and Emma prepared for what lay ahead. The past had been revealed, but the journey was far from over. Somewhere beneath the town, in the depths of the secret cave, Lily awaited, ready to be found, ready to come home. The night air was thick with anticipation as Jake and Emma prepared for their descent into the secret cave, the place that had kept Lily hidden for so many years. Armed with flashlights, ropes, and the journals that had pieced together this long-forgotten sanctuary, they knew the journey ahead would test not only their courage, but their very resolve. The past had been revealed, but now they had to confront the unknown, the darkness that concealed the truth. Guided by the faded map and the sketches from the journals, Jake and Emma made their way back to the mouth of the cave, hidden deep within the forest beyond the mill. The entrance was as foreboding as they remembered, an unassuming crevice cloaked in shadows and tangled vines. As they stepped inside, the light from their flashlights pierced the thick blackness, revealing jagged rock walls slick with moisture and echoes of dripping water. Every step felt like a descent into another world, one untouched by time but heavy with secrets. The air was cool and damp, carrying a faint metallic scent that hinted at untold stories buried beneath the earth. The walls were covered with the same mysterious symbols that had haunted their journey so far, carved deeply into the stone by hands desperate to communicate or protect. Deeper into the cave, the passage narrowed and twisted, forcing Jake and Emma to crawl at times, their bodies scraping against rough stone. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the soft sound of their breathing and the crunch of gravel underfoot. With every inch they advanced, the weight of the years pressed down on them, and the thought of Lily, waiting, scared, alone, spurred them forward. Suddenly, Emma's flashlight caught a faint glimmer ahead. They hurried toward it, hearts pounding with a mix of hope and fear. The glow emanated from a small chamber carved into the rock, its walls lined with old blankets, worn toys, and a few faded drawings pinned to the stone. It was unmistakably a place where a child had lived, hidden away from the world above. Jake's eyes searched the chamber desperately, but it was empty. No sign of Lily, no sign of life. Then, on a small wooden table, they found a note, carefully folded and yellowed with age. Emma unfolded it slowly, reading aloud the trembling words, "I am safe. I must stay hidden. Trust no one but those who seek the truth." The message sent a shiver through both of them. Lily had been here not long ago. She was alive, but still captive to secrets that kept her isolated and silent. The note was both a plea and a warning, confirming the dangerous game being played in the shadows. Determined not to leave empty-handed, Jake and Emma explored further, discovering a narrow tunnel that led deeper into the earth. The air grew colder, and the path more treacherous. They tied their ropes tightly, prepared for whatever lay ahead. As they advanced, faint sounds reached their ears, a whisper of movement, the softest shuffle of footsteps. Their breaths quickened. Was Lily near? Or was it a trap set by those who wanted to keep her hidden forever? In the darkness, every sound was amplified, every shadow a potential threat. But Jake's determination burned bright. He refused to turn back, unwilling to leave without answers or, more importantly, without Lily. They pressed onward, deeper into the labyrinth beneath the town, drawn by hope and the promise of reunion. The journey into the darkness was perilous, but it was the only path to the light, a path that could finally end 8 years of silence, mystery, and fear. As they moved further into the cave's depths, Jake and Emma knew one thing for certain. Whatever awaited them would change their lives forever, and they were ready to face it, no matter the cost. Deeper into the labyrinthine cave, Jake and Emma's every step echoed off the cold, damp walls. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of earth, and something faintly metallic, as if the very cave was holding its breath, guarding secrets long buried. Their flashlights barely cut through the darkness, and the silence pressed on them like a living thing, broken only by their cautious footsteps and quickened breathing. Despite the fear, Jake's resolve never wavered. Each step took him closer to the hidden truth he had sought for 8 long years. The narrow tunnel eventually opened into a larger cavern, where remnants of a life once lived were scattered around. There were faded drawings pinned to the jagged walls, pictures of a sun and stars, a little house, and a smiling girl. Nearby lay a small bed made of old blankets and worn cushions. The place was more than a shelter. It was a sanctuary painstakingly created by someone desperate to protect a child from a cruel world. Jake's heart clenched. The evidence was irrefutable. Lily had been here, safe, hidden away, yet still alone. He and Emma moved with reverence, careful not to disturb the fragile remnants of her past. As Emma examined a small wooden box, she found it locked tight. Together, they worked to pry it open, revealing a collection of keepsakes, a locket matching the one Emma had found beneath the willow, a few photographs, and a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. The letters were in Lily's handwriting, small but deliberate. They were addressed to someone she called friend, recounting her days underground, the loneliness, and her hope for rescue. Each word was a whisper of a child's heart, longing for family, for freedom, for the outside world. The final letter was particularly poignant. If you find this, know that I am brave. I will wait for you. Please don't give up. Tears stung Jake's eyes as he read the letters aloud. The hidden truth was more harrowing than he had imagined. Lily had survived, but at a terrible cost. Years of isolation and fear, hidden from the world by those who claimed to protect her, but also kept her captive. The question gnawed at them both. Who had betrayed her trust? Who had turned a sanctuary into a prison? Suddenly, a faint noise startled them, a scraping sound coming from deeper within the cavern. Hearts pounding, Jake and Emma followed the sound, their flashlights flickering against the rough walls. The passage led them to a small chamber concealed behind a false stone door, cleverly camouflaged to blend with the cave. With trembling hands, Jake pushed the door open, revealing a hidden room bathed in dim light from a single lantern. Inside, they found an old desk cluttered with maps, notes, and photographs, evidence of a coordinated effort to keep Lily hidden. Among the papers was a detailed journal, chronicling the movements of a man named Carver and his attempts to find and control Lily. The journal described a network of loyalists who enforced silence through threats and violence, ensuring no one could interfere. Emma's voice was barely a whisper as she pieced it together. Lily wasn't just hidden to keep her safe. She was a pawn in a larger game. Someone wanted her to stay lost, to keep the secret buried. The gravity of the truth pressed down on them. The cave, the journals, the notes, they all painted a picture of betrayal and manipulation. But amid the darkness, a fragile thread of hope remained. The evidence was now in their hands, a weapon against those who had kept Lily imprisoned for so long. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Jake's phone buzzed, a message from Detective Roberts. "They're onto you. Get out before it's too late." The warning was stark and urgent. The hidden truth had been uncovered, but it had also brought danger rushing toward them. With hearts racing and the journal secured, Jake and Emma retraced their steps through the cave's twisting passages, determined to bring the truth to light and to finally bring Lily home. The moment Detective Roberts' urgent message flashed across Jake's phone, a cold wave of reality crashed over him. "They're onto you. Get out before it's too late." The warning was clear. Danger was no longer lurking in the shadows. It was closing in fast. The hidden truths they had uncovered beneath the earth had unleashed a storm, and every second counted now. Jake's mind raced as he and Emma hastily gathered the journals, letters, and the precious evidence they had painstakingly collected from the secret chambers. Their quiet footsteps echoed with urgency in the cavern's narrow tunnels. The distant sound of rushing water nearby was a haunting reminder that the cave's labyrinthine passages offered both sanctuary and peril. Every twist and turn seemed to carry the weight of the past and the threat of the present. "Emma, we have to move faster," Jake whispered, trying to mask the rising panic in his voice. "If they catch us down here, all of this," he gestured to the documents in his hands, "will be lost forever. And so will Lily." Emma nodded, her face pale but resolute. "We can't let them win," she said firmly. "We're so close." The path back was treacherous, shadows dancing eerily as their flashlights flickered with the dampness clinging to the cave walls. Every noise outside the cavern seemed amplified. Twigs snapping, leaves rustling, footsteps. Was someone following them? The thought sent a shiver down their spines, urging them to quicken their pace despite aching limbs and the claustrophobic darkness. When they finally emerged into the cool night air, the forest was eerily still. Moonlight filtered softly through the canopy, casting pale patches on the forest floor. But safety was far from certain. Jake knew Carver's network was ruthless and resourceful, ready to silence anyone threatening their carefully woven web of lies. They didn't waste a moment. Jake called Roberts, his voice low but urgent. "We got the evidence." "What now?" Roberts' reply was grim. "We need to move quickly. I'm coordinating with a trusted team to secure the cave and extract Lily. But it won't be easy. Carver's men are already mobilizing." Jake's heart pounded. The stakes were higher than ever. This wasn't just about finding Lily anymore. It was a battle against time, deception, and dangerous enemies who wouldn't stop until their secrets were buried forever. With Roberts' guidance, Jake and Emma raced through the darkened streets, avoiding prying eyes and shadowy figures. The town that had once seemed familiar was now a labyrinth of threats. Every glance over their shoulders, every hesitant step, reminded them of the peril lurking just beyond the streetlights. Meanwhile, back at the cave entrance, Roberts and his team prepared for the risky operation. They knew they had little time to act before Carver's forces arrived. Their mission was clear: secure the hidden sanctuary, retrieve Lily, and expose the dark conspiracy that had kept her captive for so many years. As Jake and Emma reached a safe house, they took a moment to catch their breath. The weight of the journey was heavy, but so was the flame of hope burning inside them. They were no longer just searching. They were fighting for a future where Lily could finally be free. Hours later, under the cover of darkness, Roberts and his team descended into the cave with military precision. The tension was palpable. Every second was precious. Every movement was calculated. They pushed forward, deeper into the labyrinth, guided by Jake and Emma's knowledge and the evidence they had uncovered. In the heart of the cave, hidden from the world above, a small figure stirred. Lily, weakened but alive, had heard the faint sounds of voices and footsteps. Her heart fluttered with a fragile hope she had dared not feel in years. Was this the moment she had been waiting for? Was freedom finally within reach? The race against time was no longer just a fight to find Lily. It was a desperate struggle to bring her back to the light and shatter the darkness that had bound her for so long. Jake clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the past and the promise of the future collide. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: they would not stop until Lily was home. The air inside the cave was thick with tension as Detective Roberts and his team advanced carefully, their flashlights cutting narrow beams through the oppressive darkness. Each step echoed softly against the damp stone, a reminder of the precariousness of their mission. Time was running out, and the dangers surrounding them were more real than ever. But for Jake and Emma, the journey into this shadowed world was fueled by the hope of bringing Lily back to safety. Guided by Jake's memory of the tunnels and the notes they had found, the rescue team moved with precision and caution. The narrow passages forced them to proceed single file, their movements slow but deliberate, every muscle primed for sudden action. The faint sound of dripping water mingled with their quiet breathing, a soundtrack to the moment that balanced between hope and fear. Suddenly, a flicker of movement ahead made Roberts halt the group instantly. "Stay alert," he whispered into his radio. signaling for the team to ready themselves. In this place, silence was both ally and enemy, capable of betraying their presence or masking threats. They reached the chamber where Jake and Emma had found evidence of Lily's presence, the small, makeshift room that bore the marks of a child's refuge. But the space was eerily empty. Jake's heart pounded as he scanned the area. Where was Lily? Then, a faint noise, a soft rustling, almost imperceptible, caught Emma's attention. She moved closer to a pile of blankets, tucked into a dark corner, and gently pulled them aside. There, curled up and fragile, was Lily. Her wide, frightened eyes met Emma's with a mixture of fear and a glimmer of hope. Years of isolation and silence were etched in her gaze, but beneath it, the spark of life remained unbroken. Jake's breath caught as he knelt beside her, his voice trembling. "Lily, it's me, Jake. We're here to take you home." Tears welled in her eyes as she hesitated, unsure whether to trust the strangers who had finally found her. Detective Roberts stepped forward, offering calm reassurance. "You're safe now. No one can hurt you here." The team quickly secured the area, setting up a perimeter as they prepared to exit the cave with their precious charge. But just as relief began to wash over them, distant voices echoed through the tunnels. Carver's men were approaching, alerted by the very evidence Jake and Emma had uncovered. The rescue had triggered a race against an unseen enemy who would stop at nothing to reclaim what they had lost. "Move, move," Roberts commanded, urgency sharpening his tone. The team rallied, carefully lifting Lily into a blanket. Jake held her hand tightly, feeling the weight of the years they had lost, but also the hope for the future. The return journey was harrowing. The narrow tunnels seemed to close in around them as they hurried through the labyrinthine passages. Every sound behind them grew louder, the threat of pursuit tangible. But the team's training and determination kept them moving, step by desperate step. Finally, as they emerged into the cool night air, the sky was just beginning to lighten with the first hints of dawn. The world outside the cave was waking, and with it, a chance for Lily's life to begin anew. Paramedics waited nearby, ready to care for the fragile girl who had survived against all odds. Jake stayed by her side, whispering words of comfort, promising that she would never be alone again. Emma, exhausted but relieved, looked up at the awakening sky, knowing their fight was far from over, but grateful that this chapter had finally found its turning point. The rescue was more than a mission. It was a victory of hope over darkness, of love over fear. Lily's journey back to the light had begun, and with it, the chance for healing, truth, and a future reclaimed from the shadows. The first rays of dawn stretched gently over the horizon, casting a soft glow over the quiet town as Lily was carefully transported to the hospital. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled the air, a stark contrast to the earthiness of the cave, where she had spent so many years hidden from the world. But here, under the vigilant care of compassionate doctors and nurses, the process of healing, both physical and emotional, began in earnest. Jake remained by Lily's side, holding her hand through the countless tests and examinations. He watched as her fragile body slowly responded to nourishment and rest. But it was her spirit that demanded the greatest care. The trauma of 8 years in isolation was not something that time alone could erase. Every whispered fear, every sudden flinch, spoke volumes about the depth of her pain. Yet beneath that pain lay a quiet resilience that surprised even the professionals. Emma visited often, bringing small gifts and stories of the world Lily had missed. She became a constant presence, a gentle reminder that Lily was no longer alone. Slowly, the walls of fear and mistrust that had encased Lily's heart began to crack. With patience and love, the seeds of hope took root. The community, once haunted by the mystery of Lily's disappearance, gathered in support. News of her rescue spread like wildfire, and neighbors who had long suspected something sinister in the shadows finally found relief and purpose. Fundraisers, support groups, and awareness campaigns emerged, all dedicated to ensuring that no child would ever suffer as Lily had. But healing was not a linear path. Some days were filled with tears and silence, others with tentative smiles and the beginnings of trust. Therapists worked closely with Lily, unraveling the layers of trauma with care. She began to speak, first in broken sentences, then with more confidence, telling her story, a story of fear, courage, and survival. Jake and Emma stood at the heart of this transformation, their bond deepening with every step forward. They celebrated the small victories. The first time Lily laughed, the first night she slept without nightmares, the first time she stepped outside into the sunlight without hesitation. Each moment was a triumph over the darkness that had once consumed her life. Meanwhile, Detective Roberts and his team continued their investigation, determined to bring Carver and his accomplices to justice. The evidence uncovered in the cave, combined with Lily's testimony, formed the foundation of a case that would finally expose the evil that had festered in the town's shadows. The legal battles were daunting, but the community's unwavering support gave strength to the pursuit of truth. As the weeks turned to months, Lily began to reclaim her childhood in small, meaningful ways. She returned to school, where teachers and classmates welcomed her with open arms. She discovered the joys of friendship, the thrill of discovery, and the simple pleasures of everyday life. Though the scars of her past remained, they no longer defined her. For Jake, Emma, and Lily, the journey of healing was a shared one. Together, they faced the long road ahead, fortified by love and determination. The cave that had once been a prison was now a distant memory, overshadowed by the bright promise of tomorrow. In the quiet moments, Jake often reflected on the twists of fate that had brought them here, from the heartbreak of loss to the exhilaration of reunion. The mystery that had consumed so many years was finally unraveling, replaced by a story of hope and resilience that would inspire the entire community. The past could not be changed, but the future was theirs to shape. And in the light of a new day, Lily was no longer the missing child in the front yard. She was a beacon of strength, a living testament to the power of love and the unyielding will to survive. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with anticipation and a collective yearning for truth. After years of silence, fear, and unanswered questions, the moment had finally arrived to confront the darkness that had loomed over the town for nearly a decade. Carver and his accomplices, the architects of Lily's disappearance and captivity, stood trial in front of a jury whose eyes reflected the community's pain and hope. Detective Roberts sat quietly in the gallery, his heart pounding as the prosecution laid out the case. The evidence from a cave, the journals, letters, and physical remnants of Lily's confinement, painted a chilling picture of deception and cruelty. Witnesses came forward, their testimonies revealing the extent of Carver's manipulation and the silent complicity that had allowed such evil to thrive. Lily's voice, though still fragile, carried the undeniable weight of truth as she bravely recounted her ordeal. Each word was a step toward reclaiming her identity, a testament to her resilience. Her courage inspired the courtroom, touching everyone present and breaking the long-standing silence that had shielded the perpetrators. Jake and Emma watched with mixed emotions, relief that justice was finally underway, but also the raw pain of revisiting wounds that had yet to fully heal. They knew this was not just a legal battle. It was a moral reckoning for the town and a pivotal moment for Lily's journey toward recovery. The defense fought fiercely, attempting to undermine the evidence and cast doubt on testimonies. But the weight of truth was undeniable. The detailed investigation, the corroborating stories, and Lily's own testimony formed an unbreakable chain that dismantled their arguments. As the trial progressed, community members gathered outside the courthouse, holding vigils and showing solidarity. Their presence was a reminder that this was not just a story of one lost child, but a call to action against injustice and neglect. After days of intense proceedings, the jury deliberated. The tension in the courtroom was palpable, every second stretching endlessly as the town held its breath. Finally, the verdict was delivered, guilty on all counts. A collective sigh of relief swept through the room, tears of joy mingling with tears of sorrow. Carver and his accomplices were sentenced to lengthy prison terms, ensuring they could no longer harm anyone else. The legal victory was a milestone, but more importantly, it was a symbol that even the deepest shadows could be illuminated by justice. For Lily, the verdict brought a bittersweet sense of closure. While the scars of her past remained, knowing that her captors were held accountable empowered her to face the future with newfound strength. The community's support became a pillar, reinforcing the idea that no one was alone in their fight. Jake and Emma, now more than ever, pledged to stand by Lily's side. Their bond was unbreakable, forged through shared struggle and unwavering hope. Together, they envisioned a life not defined by trauma, but by healing and possibility. In the weeks that followed, the town began to heal too. Awareness programs were established to protect vulnerable children, and local authorities improved their protocols for missing persons cases. The tragedy had sparked a movement, transforming pain into proactive change. The story of Lily's rescue and the subsequent justice served ripple beyond the town's borders, inspiring others to speak out against silence and fear. It became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even when darkness seems overwhelming, courage and truth can prevail. As the courtroom emptied and the final chapter of the trial closed, Jake, Emma, and Lily stepped into the sunlight outside, ready to embrace the healing that lay ahead. Their journey was far from over, but with justice served, the future looked brighter than ever. The soft glow of dawn illuminated the town in hues of gold and rose, a symbolic dawn not just for the day, but for the life that lay ahead. A life reborn from shadows into light. After the harrowing journey through loss, fear, and darkness, Lily, Jake, and Emma stood at the threshold of a new beginning. The years of pain and silence were behind them now, replaced by hope, healing, and the promise of a future shaped by love and resilience. Lily's first steps into this new chapter were tentative yet courageous. With Jake and Emma by her side, she ventured beyond the familiar safety of their home and the hospital into the wider world that had once seemed so distant. School resumed with gentle patience from teachers and classmates alike, who welcomed her with open hearts and eager smiles. Slowly, Lily discovered the joys of friendship and learning, the vibrant colors of life she had missed. Therapy sessions continued, but the focus shifted from mere survival to growth. Lily found outlets for her feelings, art, music, and storytelling, allowing her to express the complex emotions that words alone could not capture. Her laughter, once rare and hesitant, now echoed through the halls, a testament to the healing power of time and care. Jake and Emma, too, embraced this fresh start with renewed purpose. The bond forged in crisis blossomed into a family united not by blood alone, but by unwavering loyalty and love. They created traditions, celebrated milestones, and nurtured a home filled with warmth and safety, a sanctuary where Lily's spirit could flourish. The community, forever changed by the events that had shaken it to its core, rallied behind initiatives to protect children and support families. Memorials were established to honor the courage of survivors and the tireless efforts of those who never gave up. Schools held workshops, law enforcement enhanced protocols, and neighbors pledged vigilance, ensuring that no child would be left unheard or unseen. Those scars remained, some visible, others hidden deep within. Lily's story was no longer one of victimhood, but of triumph. She had reclaimed her life from the abyss and inspired a town to confront its shadows with courage and compassion. Her journey became a beacon, illuminating paths for others lost in darkness to find their way home. As seasons changed, the once silent front yard where Lily had vanished became a place of celebration and remembrance. Flowers bloomed where fears once took root, and laughter filled the air once more. The secret cave entrance, now sealed and marked, stood as a solemn reminder of the past, but also a symbol of victory over evil. In quiet moments, Jake, Emma, and Lily often reflected on the extraordinary journey they had endured. They understood that healing was ongoing, a lifelong process nurtured by patience and love. Yet, they faced the future not with fear, but with hope, a hope strengthened by the bonds they had built and the truth they had uncovered. The story of the missing child found in a secret cave was no longer a tale of despair, but one of resilience and renewal. It was a story of a community united, of justice served, and of lives reclaimed. Most importantly, it was Lily's story, a story that, despite its dark beginnings, promised light, love, and a new beginning. With hearts full and eyes bright, they stepped forward together, ready to embrace whatever the future held. The past was a chapter closed, and ahead lay endless possibilities, hope reborn in the morning light, and a family made whole again. Thank you so much for joining me on this emotional journey, the story of courage, hope, and the incredible power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. Lily's story reminds us that no matter how dark the past may be, the future always holds the promise of a new beginning. If this story touched your heart or inspired you in any way, please don't forget to like and share it. Your support means the world. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below to share your feelings or insights about the story. And if you want to hear more gripping and uplifting tales like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update. Together, let's keep hope alive and celebrate the resilience of the human spirit. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to sharing more stories with you soon.